That guy. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thanks for checking out Ray's great Gulpable Gamay. This is our third live podcast. It's something that's really, really near to me and dear. I love this style of red wine. We're going to focus on, we've got three Gamay-based wines from Eastern France. Folks out there who are new to this, if you've got a YouTube account, you can chat via the live chat. If not, just look around. I did this way so we can have the live stream happen and people just have to click on it. They don't have to log in or anything. I'm Nate Norfolk. I'm the wine and spirits director here at Ray's Wine and Spirits. I'm a certified sommelier. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I'll show you how we're going to do this. I'll show you the three wines before we even start. Everybody, and maybe you all don't have all of them. This is called Uva Non Grata. And I've got them in order left to right down here, how we're going to drink them. This is Uva Non Grata, which is made just outside of Lyon. I'll show you a map in a moment. Then we're going to do the Tissot Gamay. We'll try that second. These are all made from the Gamay grape. This is Tissot Gamay from 2018. This is in Bugey, which is pretty close to the Swiss border, actually, kind of in the foothills of the Alps, basically. And then the Clos de la Roilette Fleurie will taste last. This is the 2019. This wine, this is one of the highest rated Gamay wines in years. It got 94 points from the Wine Spectator. You can buy all these wines. Everybody who did this probably bought some already. They're all available through Ray's website. The Clos de Roilette I've just got a few bottles left. The other two, there's ample amounts. Pretty exciting. One thing I want to say about these wines, and all three of them are incredibly versatile with food. And I mean, basic pairings. I love these in the fall. Don't just think of them as Thanksgiving plays, but more like this basic, the Uva Non Grata, the first wine. Like, I've had this a bunch with just really using like a sweet potato with apples and nuts, like a kind of sweet and savory dishes. They pair really well with like foods that have classic allspice and pepper, kind of like Chinese 7 spices going on too, Chinese 5 spice, like Peking duck, even like pretty cool, heartier Chinese takeout that isn't too spicy. You can chill Gamay based wines too. Like, don't be afraid to put these in the fridge for like a half hour before you do them, before you drink them. So we got our little funsy. Uh-oh, Eric, how do I go to the next slide? Here. So what I do, I'll skip a couple slides ahead, and then I'm going to show you guys a map, because this is, and I'm probably going to do this. This is out of habit. I'll say two phrases, and I'll mean. I want to talk about Gamay the grape, but Gamay the grape that is used to make all three of these wines is tied to the Beaujolais region, like 100%. Like they're almost synonymous. So Gamay is the grape, and Beaujolais is the region. And as we can see, I'll move my cursor guy over here. Beaujolais is in the southern part of Burgundy in eastern France. And I'll make this mistake, I promise, sometime in here. I'm going to say Beaujolais, and I mean Gamay, and vice versa. But Beaujolais is the place, Gamay is the grape. Beaujolais is really where this grape variety came to prominence as a style of wine that became world-renowned. And it's been cultivated in this part of eastern France for well over 700 years plus, probably closer to 1,000. We'll go back to the top. And it's got a sordid history there. When we think of Eastern France, the main grape variety that's world renowned here from the eastern part of France is Pinot Noir. And by the 14th century, in what is now Burgundy, folks at that point in the early 14th century, folks had already been cultivating Pinot Noir and making fine wine in this region for minimally 300 years. And the Duke of Burgundy at that time decided that Pinot Noir was of such high quality and Gamay was inferior to Pinot Noir, and he wanted his wines to compete with the wines from in and around Paris and capture that market, that he put an edict out to ban Gamay from being grown in Burgundy. Though Beaujolais, the southern part of Burgundy, was the edict was rarely enforced there, and people continued to grow Gamay there. And interestingly, Gamay worked in that region because it had a granite soil. Most Pinot Noir does better on limestone. The granite worked for Gamay. It kind of gave it these really bright, slightly mineral characters to it. I'm not going to elaborate super deep on that, but I think the idea is that's kind of where this first wine gets its name from. It's called Uva Non Grata, or the idea of a grape we're no longer grateful for. And being a little bit of a play on the idea that this Gamay was banished from Burgundy, its homeland, and made to, no one was allowed to grow it in the area that we now think of as the Côte d'Or, the northern part of Burgundy. And this gets into a little bit. See, we see, the winemakers were forced into Beaujolais to leave the northern part of Burgundy. But Gamay works here, and this is how Beaujolais came about, as being somewhat of a wine region for the everyday wine for the people of Burgundy. Really is Beaujolais. About 50% of Beaujolais wines are consumed in France. The export market really, really started to grow in the 1970s because of something called Beaujolais Nouveau. We're not going to drink any Beaujolais Nouveau today, for good reason. Beaujolais Nouveau really took off. It's a wine the grapes are grown, the grapes are harvested, and a wine is made within about a month, and it's released to consumers all over the world on the third Thursday of November. And it's an extremely light, super fruity yet dry wine that became kind of ubiquitous with the region. And the quality of Beaujolais, its popularity, Beaujolais Nouveau, the popularity of it caused people to think of it only as a wine to be drank during that time, and they associated all Beaujolais and all Gamay with Nouveau. And the quality of this wine isn't always the greatest. So folks, from a marketing standpoint and globally, consumers made connections with Gamay and Beaujolais always being in this Nouveau style. So more serious producers really had to dig themselves out of that hole and find a market. And that really didn't start happening in the way we think about it as a fine wine outside of France until the late 1990s. People really lost respect for Beaujolais as a region because of this Nouveau, because they made this very ample, relatively inexpensive wine that was celebrated only during this brief time. My biggest crusade here with this tasting and just promoting Gamay-based wines in general is that these are incredibly versatile red wines. They're very, very food friendly. You'll see this first wine, like everybody, let's drink this first and foremost. Come on, I'm talking and talking and talking. This Uva Non Grata is just, I've had like, God, I probably drank a case of this in the last like 6 or 7 months, just because it's become a house wine for me. Because it's very low alcohol. It's like only 11% alcohol by volume, or it's 12.5. Sorry, so it's not super super low, but this is like 2 or 3 degrees lower in alcohol than most dry red wine from California. It's not very tannic at all. When we smell it, I get these just incredibly like ripe raspberry aromas and something kind of leaning towards even like a banana meets like a boysenberry quality to it. And this is $10 retail. I hope people are drinking along. Oh yeah. Oh, this is people from work itself are trolling me and asking me creepy questions on here. Okay. Ed, I don't know why I'm so smart and handsome. Yeah. It's just natural talent. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to drink a little bit of this today, just because there's good things going on out in the world. Don't be afraid to chill these and like do them, like I said, like half an hour in the fridge before you pull them out is great. Super, super versatile. This wine I found holds up really well, even if it's open a few days. I put it right back in the fridge and then take it out usually a half an hour or so. Once it's fully chilled, I'll take it out a half an hour or so before I really want to drink it and let it get somewhere in, not really, I love these at about 60 degrees, which is like, I know we're splitting hairs here. It's below room temp, but super, super delicious right there. Wow, that's super good. Amazing value. Yeah, this is like just a staff favorite for months and months and months here at Ray's. I think I can't press enough how versatile these are with food too, and even like lighter cheeses. They work well with like highly like aromatic foods that have a fair amount of spice to them too. Even like certain curries, this can go with really well. This is interesting because this wine is actually doesn't get a Beaujolais appellation. It's just called a Vin de France. And oops. I'll talk a little bit more about the grape variety here too. When we talk about Gamay as a grape, we have to notice, it's almost always grown alongside of Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir is actually one of the parents of Gamay. And it has a lot of similarities to it, though. And a Gauss Blanc is the other parent. It's a wild crossing of those. People really group Gamay in Eastern France because it's not as fickle as Pinot Noir. It was much more prolific, meaning like if we plant this, we get way higher yields than we do of Pinot Noir. And for that reason, when you're like some subsistence level farmer guy who is just trying to eke out a living and not starve to death, hey man, making a bunch of wine, getting a bunch of grapes that are easier to grow, just kind of goes with the program. Let's see some other questions. We are drinking with you. Yes, please drink with me. Yes. Oh, Bradley Wells. Man, good to see you. Delicious light cranberry note. What's with the funky label? Oh man, great question. Jesus. I knew somebody'd ask me that. And I don't really know what's up with the funky label. Good question. I think the whole idea, because this is just a Vin de France, it's meant to be the whole point here is to make something that's just this quaffable table wine that's super, super ready to drink, that doesn't have the seriousness that we associate with wines from greater appellations. I mean, this just is literally called Vin de France. It's out. Some of the grapes are grown outside of the Beaujolais appellation. Definitely great with Thai curry, cheese. Great suggestion. Oh, thanks. If you're eating that right now, awesome. One thing I'm going to get at too. I'm just trying to stay on point here. We get these really fruity aromas out of a lot of grapes, a lot of Gamay based wines, and there's a couple production techniques that are unique to Beaujolais and other producers outside of Beaujolais making Gamay based wines have copied them or used these winemaking techniques. And one thing I want everyone to understand about Gamay, and one of the reasons I really like it, and it's such a great food play and such a refreshing wine, is Gamay has relatively high acidity, and sometimes, and one of the reasons the dukes and Philip, the Duke of Burgundy, 600 plus years ago, didn't like it is occasionally the wine can be bitter, and especially when it's overproduced or in a not ripe enough vintage. There can be some bitter notes to it. So these are that bitterness. There's a couple winemaking techniques that are employed to soften some of the acidity that's intrinsically in the grape, and amp up the fruit qualities of it. And this is, I hope everybody can see this. This is really kind of small, the PowerPoint, but this is a little bit geeky of a term. It's called carbonic maceration. And really cool thing. And this is how almost all Beaujolais Nouveau really goes through this. I know I'm trying to separate Gamay from the Beaujolais Nouveau, but one of the reasons, if you've ever had Beaujolais Nouveau, that it's so fruity and almost like bubblegummy is these wines are made in not like a normal wine where we just haul in the grapes and press them as soon as we can and take the juice and then ferment it. What we're doing with carbonic maceration is, somebody's asking if will we have access to the slides later? Thanks. Yeah, can I put it on the site? You don't know? Hey, if you want, if you want the PowerPoint, shoot me and respond with the email address here, and we'll get that to you for sure. Or I'm Nate at Nate Nate at Ray's Wine, all one word, RAYSWINE.com. So Mary Sue Christensen, just shoot me your email address. I'll make sure we get it. Think maybe we can put a PowerPoint on the website too. Eric doesn't know. Okay, I'm going on. I said the carbonic maceration thing. Okay, but this is what kind of separates a lot of Gamay from almost all other dry red wines. There's two techniques that are employed here. The first one is called carbonic maceration, and as geeky as this sounds, really what it is we're taking whole grapes. Before we crush them, we're putting them in some kind of sealed vessel, and then we typically try to get the air out of that by, usually they believe they pump in CO2. So we're getting the oxygen out. The wines begin to ferment in an anaerobic environment. And this does two things. It creates these esters, which are these are the aromas. These are the aromas that are really like fruity, like kind of bubblegum I always get like kind of bubblegum banana raspberry, but banana's the main one, and banana and really gorgeously super fresh ripe raspberry too is a kind of sign of carbonic maceration to me. And after about once it gets up to like basically there's a point with the carbonic maceration that it stops working because there's the grapes basically burst, and then it's over, and then we're exposing the whole. It's an intercellular fermentation is happening. It's fermenting inside of the grape and making these ultra ripe fruity things are being accentuated, and some of the malic acid that makes Gamay wine sometimes really acidic, that malic acid is being depleted. So we start to get a softer acid profile. So we can have this light, refreshing red wine from a cool climate that's relatively low in alcohol, but still has these really ripe fruit flavors and a softer acid. And the wine is just super pleasant, easy to drink, and has a very fresh quality, almost unlike anything else that's out there. That's, in a nutshell, that's what's going on, especially with this wine. Fun take on the Uva Non Grata thing, because it's a play on Gamay being pushed aside and outside of Burgundy. This is actually grown just northwest of Lyon. I think, here we got our Lyon again. We're seeing how Beaujolais, most of Beaujolais is just northwest of Lyon, sourced from a variety of different vineyards, throughout this area in eastern France. Does anybody have a question about that the carbonic maceration? I hope I explained that in a way that is a little easy to digest. In a nutshell, it makes a slightly fuller bodied wine with a lighter tannic structure to it. Thoughts or questions about this wine in particular? We're going to look at a little bit more of it. I kind of went over this, this is why does Beaujolais taste like bananas? This, I really touched on most of this. I know I try to avoid the super lengthy writing PowerPoint. Here's what's kind of cool. When there's a lack of oxygen, it causes an enzymatic biochemical form of fermentation to begin inside the grapeberry that makes them explode. So it's not an alcoholic fermentation. That's a big thing that we need to kind of wrap our heads around. Man, super good. And it really is, it leads some other aromatic signs of wines that have gone through the carbonic maceration. Candied fruit, pear. A lot of people get pear. The whole raspberry. Folks say cranberry sometimes. I think most Wisconsinites are so exposed. I think most of us are like hyper aware of what cranberry tastes like. Hence, this is the Uva Non Grata, a little bit about this. And I would say folks out there that like this wine, this is definitely the lighter side of Gamay. I mean, we're going to start getting into fuller and richer wines as we go on. And definitely that carbonic maceration. This is classic carbonic macerated Gamay. Super, super fruity, light tannin. I'd still say medium acid. All right. Hey, Nate. Could you do a shout out to Tracy Tenpenny's birthday for this? Tracy Tenpenny, happy birthday, my guy. Yeah. Wow, November 7th. Also, my brother Matt's 39th birthday, who's not watching this. Matt, happy 39th birthday. Tracy Tenpenny, I don't know what birthday it is of yours, but happy birthday. Boom. All right. Grandpa Merson says we love it. Beautiful. Thank you, man. Okay. Got that. And then here's the next wine we're going to go to. If you've got the Terry Tissot Gamay open, this is a really wildly different animal. If everybody get a nose on this, is everybody smelling this? We're into the Tissot Gamay. This is from Bugey. And the G might be a little hard. It might be Bugey. It's more like Bugey. Like, I got a boogie in my nose, maybe. I don't know if that's a good enough silly pun on this. Ta-da! All right. These are very, very similar in color. You'll notice, like, Gamay-based wines, because they're kind of higher in acid, and they're typically grown in relatively cooler climates. These are going to be, they're kind of lighter red wines that have a really classic red hue to them. Wines from warmer climates are going to have a darker, more purple color. And even lower acid wines tend to have a darker darker purple, more purpley kind of hue. These are classically red. This thing is kind of on the funky side. So where this is coming from, if everybody can see the inset here of France, Bugey and the whole Savoie area is almost in Switzerland. This is in the foothills of the Alps in eastern France. And it's kind of just on the left-hand side of this map in the green here. And it's if we were in Burgundy, kind of the birthplace of Gamay would be more around here. As we go east, we're getting into kind of colder sites. Most of this is grown on really this is Tissot here sources this. This is from a few different vineyards within the appellation itself. Most of them are older vines. He is doing this totally different nose. Everybody's saying it kind of reminds of Rebecca Arnell saying kind of reminds her of raspberry Kool-Aid. Yeah, a little bit, especially but it's got more. I get like a leather character out of this. It smells a little bit like bay leaf to me too. It's definitely got more of a herby thing. This is not the carbonic maceration though, so we're not letting the berries get this supercharged fruity character and fermenting them in a closed environment. But what he is doing is he's doing what's called whole cluster fermentation. Sounds like it's a lot of the same thing, but what they're doing is they're harvesting the grapes and they're fermenting them while the stems are still on them. This is how all wine used to be made. Like the idea of pulling grapes off of a bunch and individually getting the grapes to be fermented just as grapes without the stem was a luxury people did not have until relatively recently. So he's employing a little bit more of a kind of classic the old way of making Gamay. And I stand corrected, this is all from a single vineyard, and it's just over 40 years old. So these are 43-year-old vines at this point. That whole cluster fermentation, when we're making wines from cool climates, and we still include the stems in them, it's tricky business. We can start to get green and bitter aromas, green aromas or vegetal aromas, or very, very highly like sappy green wood character out of it, or conversely on the palate we can get bitterness. As funky and earthy as this is, on the nose, it's got pretty nice fruit on the palate. And I see more acid on the back end of it than the Uva Non Grata. And the wine's got more body to it also. I picked these because they were a pretty drastic contrast. Same grape variety, made in different ways. And definitely the Uva Non Grata, the first wine, is a higher production wine. This being from a single vineyard in a rather small appellation and a wine region that just doesn't crank out tons of red wine. This is a pretty great contrast. All right, people are making silly things. I hope that this compare and contrast to these two is really drastic. Also, we're dealing with, by scale, we're about 100 miles, probably less than 100 miles as the crow flies from one site to the other, maybe a little bit more. But once again, over half of the world's Gamay is planted in the 60 square miles of Beaujolais, and then much else of it is from out eastern France. This is a grape variety that's almost completely grown in eastern France. There's smatterings of it now in northern Italy, in the Val d'Aosta in northern Italy. It's relatively it's grown. People are making it in Oregon. It's been grown for 150 years in some way, shape, or form in California also. There's a question. The climate between, from Rebecca Arnell, the climate between these first two wines are different, but is the soil composition similar? Oh, wow. Great question. So the first wine, the Uva Non Grata, I don't know the soil type because it's sourced from all over the place. Mostly in the Beaujolais appellation, we're dealing with granite soils. Bugey is probably more clay and calcareous sites. I'm not 100% sure. I feel like the main variation between these two wines is about the Tissot being old vines, so making smaller berries because they're older grapes, and we get a more concentrated wine. And the fact that the Tissot also does that whole cluster thing where the stems are included, which gives it, we're making a fuller body wine because there's smaller berries, and there's more, and the stem character comes out in the wine too. I'd like somebody's opinion on this. If just put something out here, like what you think of it. Just, I won't, if you want to be anonymous, just say anonymous, write anonymous too. I won't put your name out there. But I guess everybody can see the live chat, right, Eric? Oh, so I guess that doesn't work because other people are going to see live chat. But any questions about that? Is there anybody that's like, no, man, I can't, I don't want this at all. It's too funky. It's so weird to be the only dude in the room tasting wine and like trying to look into a camera. Yeah, Rebecca's saying, to chill this would be, yeah, having a cooler really, really, really kind of tames these wines down a little bit. I find this is a kind of ongoing conversation I have with folks all the time, and just as somebody who loves wine and sells wine, it's a broken record, but in America we consistently chill white wine too much, like serve it really, really cold, and then conversely we serve red wine too warm. Really, like 60, 55, 60 degrees is pretty epically great for most light to medium bodied red wines. Mary Sue Christensen, love them both. We'll be buying again. Hopefully everybody can see the contrast here. Pretty fun. I mean, I know they're kind of two different price points, but Gamay really delivers really complex wines in the under $20 price point. I would say one thing to note too is this Tissot, this second wine, this definitely has some short-term aging ability to it. Like you could lay this down for 3 to 5 years and it's going to have a very, very similar flavor profile to what it does right now. Some of the savory characters will be more enhanced to it. It's not a super fruit-driven wine. It does have that kind of like black raspberry thing happening. I would say the first wine, the Uva Non Grata, that is a wine of pleasure. It is meant to be consumed immediately. It'll be great for another year or two. It's not gonna get any better holding on to it. And in fact, a year from now, I'll have the 2020, and that should be a relatively decent wine. But this is really I will say this: 2019 is this amazing vintage for the environs around Beaujolais. Any other questions about either of these before I keep moving? One thing I'll say about this Tissot, and it's definitely a wine you could do with like game or just basic, steak and burger stuff. It definitely, to me, has a like a slight, in a positive way, has like a slight like rocky kind of note to it, and leans a little towards the iron thing. We will consume both immediately. Yeah, I think that's probably what's going on when we're doing the tasting like this. This is weird. This region also, Bugey, also makes, there's a kind of semi-sweet sparkling wine made from this area also, that we carry one called Patrick Botex in the store. Totally different, really kind of a crazy like sweet sparkling Gamay. All right. Oh, can I write on here? I can't I? That's it's okay. That wine is called Patrick Botex Bugey Cerdon, I believe. Yep. All right. Okay. And we saw where this friend is from. Now we're gonna get into the last wine, which is the Clos de la Roilette. Clos de la Roilette. And this is a little confusing. So the guy who makes the wine, his name's Alain Codet. The family, Clos de la Roilette, is an allusion to, and when you look at the label, the family that owned the winery before the Coder family named it after a racehorse that they owned. So Roilette was the horse, and hence the horse being on the label. This is in an area. What I'm showing you is this map of kind of a more detailed map of Beaujolais. This wine is from what we would call one of the crus of Beaujolais. And it's technically in a village called Fleurie, or the appellation Fleurie, but right on the border of an area called Moulin-et-Vent. And this is hands down thought of as one of the top dozen producers in Beaujolais, and the vineyard here, Clos de Roilette, is recognized as one of the greatest properties here. It's unique. Most of the rest of Beaujolais has granite soils. This is a clay soil. What does that do? The clay soil, for whatever reason, and I'm kind of throwing up my hands and gonna plead the fifth here a little bit. The clay soil here lends structure and depth to the wine, where the granite soils that are around here and some of the volcanic soils give wines that have a more mineral character. Clay soil, in this sense, gives this wine structure, body, depth. This, kind of like the first wine, goes through some carbonic maceration. Oh man. And he ages it. Sorry, it's whole cluster. It's not the carbonic, it's the whole cluster, kind of like the second wine was. Where the stems are included. And part of it is, part of this wine is aged in what are called foudres, which are large French oak barrels. This was the highest rated Beaujolais wine, under $40 in the Wine Spectator this year. And I normally only get, like, I'm lucky if I get 2 cases of this, and I think we got 4 or 5 this year. Unfortunately, us receiving a greater volume of this wine is most of it goes to restaurants. So because of the pandemic, we got our hands on, about 30 some more bottles than we normally would. I really wanted to show this wine off because it's extremely high quality for Beaujolais and Gamay, and shows the seriousness of Gamay. It's not weird to age this wine 5, 10 plus years. It's got the structure and body to do that. Oh boy. Jared saying this Clos has nice red licorice. Yeah, it has a spicier character that the other 2 wines definitely don't have. A kind of like I don't even know if I'd go so far. I mean, it's kind of got like a well, he's saying red licorice, which is more, like once again we're going back to that raspberry-ish flavor to it too. But this is, to me, I get like almost, I talk about these all the time. They're umeshu. They're like a Japanese pickled plum. It definitely has a plummy character to it, but I get a little like fennel and hyssop on this too. Rebecca's saying this one is probably the favorite here. Yeah. Serious stuff. It's interesting. This is a great example of a wine that there's some aging in oak, but this doesn't taste like oak at all. So what are we doing? Why are they making a decision here to use old Foudre, older barrels? Putting that wine in oak exposes a small amount of it to oxygen, which makes it more aromatic when it's young. That's usually kind of one of the ideas behind it. Also, it has a tendency to just kind of soften the whole thing out, and the oak aged portion is really great for them gives them the ability to, even though it all comes from the same vineyard, aging it, some of it in these older barrels, it's almost like it's almost like cooking a piece of meat 2 different ways. You know what I mean? Like, this is that barrel aged portion of this wine, when they put it into the blend, it softens it up. It gives it a little more of a savory aromatic quality, and just the wine is more ready to be received once they bottle it. Man, this is good stuff. I think when Gamay is of high quality, when Gamay is of high quality, it has a really intriguing combination of like fruity character. This wine I would say is like medium to full bodied. It's rich. We kind of these. If I'm doing this right, these should get progressively, bigger wines as we go along. I've got a couple bottles left. There's like 2 maybe. Sorry. I mean, that's kind of the nature of doing this thing. That I normally wouldn't even be able to use this wine in this type of setting because there's so little available. So, I mean, like, the one plus side of the pandemic is us drinking this wine right now, right? And then, every year you can look to get more. I'm happy to point folks in the direction of, other wines in this style. I will make mention, other Cru Beaujolais wines are going to have this character, this depth, this richness to them. Bradley Wells is saying he gets a little vanilla on it. I mean, obviously tasting wine is subjective. This one's tough for me because I don't know, not tough. I mean, there's a lot going on with the nose, but like I said, weird things like fennel and like hyssop. It's a slight leather character to it too. You know, I get the umeshu, I get a plum, I get like in a really good way, I get a tiny bit of crab apple. And I mean that in a really appealing, like kind of mouth-watering manner. It's like slightly stony to it too. What other similar ones would you recommend? Great question. Let me type here. I mean, the really kind of mother of Gamay here would be like La Pierre Morgon, and then Thievin. Forgive my spelling because I'm doing this on the fly. Cotebruy. Also very good and somewhat and similar style. Wow. Yeah, like I said, I when I initially planned this, I was hoping I'd have a little more of this wine left, and I know it's a little, pun intended, it's kind of sour grapes, so we're running out of this because this is super, super sexy stuff. And this wine will probably be great tomorrow, too. Beaujolais, as weird as this sounds, too, like Beaujolais is pretty great with most Italian food, also. And like pasta dishes and just kind of higher acid foods. Nate, can you settle a debate we are having? Which of these three wines would Inspector Clouseau like best? Oh man, I definitely think Clouseau is kind of like a sophisticate and a bumbler at the same time. Which I can empathize with myself. I think he'd probably like the Clos de la Roilette the most. Just it's got like the kind of classy old world label to it, and has a very like a Frenchman's French wine vibe more so than the others. Any questions about this? I guess one thing I want to say about especially the Tissot, the Tissot, Bugey, Gamay, and then the Clos de la Roilette, Fleurie. These are both wines. My hope is always that people hold these in the same esteem that they do Pinot Noir at the same price point, and that they think of them kind of from that. From that perspective, and just almost use them interchangeably with the way they would with Pinot Noir that's in like the $20 to $25 land. I personally find these wines to be really, really, really great values in the global sense of wine, and I find them to be, especially the last two wines are very. They have a sense of place, meaning it would be hard to imitate these wines if you made them somewhere else outside of France. And they get lots of points from me for being unique. They're incredibly, incredibly food friendly. They age decently. And like I said, I love Pinot Noir, but like it's hard for me to get this quality of Pinot Noir in the $20 to $30 range. And usually if I do, it's a pretty mass produced wine that's good in character, but and maybe high in quality, but lacks in the lacks in the unique. I can't give it the same check mark for being as unique as these are, especially in the $20 some dollar price range. Just don't get $20 Pinot that has these really, really fun, kind of complex characteristics to it. Is this my last? I think that's my last slide too. I'm gonna wrap this up pretty soon. If is anything out there? I think I touched on basic food pairings. I would say if you guys don't, I mean, maybe you're not drinking 3 bottles of wine tonight, like just throw these in the fridge. I think all 3 of them are gonna be pretty great tomorrow, and you can drink them throughout the weekend. Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. I'm gonna do a sparkling wine class that we're calling, like, it's Bubbles Basics, Prosecco to Champagne. Very, very similar format next week. Those wines are going to have a little bit more of a kind of a broader, we'll touch upon a little bit broader how they're made, will vary a bit. Rebecca Arnell, thanks for saying great picks. I'm gonna hang on until 6 p.m. Just if anybody who does have any kind of questions to finish with. You can buy these all from the website. Like I said, they're still available in that manner. I have everything in the store. The Clos de Roilette probably is already sold out though. But the Tissot Gamay, the second wine we tried, and the first wine, the Uva Non Grata, there's plenty of both of those. I think, like, I know I try not to make light of these things right now, but we're probably not having any giant gatherings for folks over Thanksgiving. But, like, if I were going to have a ton of family over, I think the Uva Non Grata would have been my pick this year, too, for just gluggable red wine. I can't stress enough, too, how I love that I think every single one of these, the Tissot is 12.5% alcohol. The Clos de la Roilette is 13. These are moderately boozy wines, so you can kind of indulge a little bit. Grandpa Emerson, thank you, Nate. We really enjoyed this during our day of celebration. Hey, man, I feel you without, getting voicing my views about that stuff at work. Yeah. Mary Sue Christensen, this was great, Nate. Love the 3 picks. Thanks. Thank you guys. And feel free to making Gamay kind of just something that's at the table is, I think, beneficial for folks that love food and wine, and regardless of the price point. I hope everybody sees you. Hey, yeah. Eric's thanking me for dodging the trolls. Yeah, Ed, who works here, was super trolling us. I'm gonna have a good time with this Clos de Roilette. I'm gonna drink some champagne tonight too, y'all. That's the reals. I'm surprised nobody thought the Tissot was a super funk bomb. I'm gonna just hit it one more time, just a little bit. Wow. Did anyone have was there any wine that you didn't like and it was, and for any reason you didn't dig it? I always like to hear that. Yeah, don't drink the remaining Clos de Roilette. Yeah, right. I know. Oh, yeah. Jared Kraft says the Tissot wasn't bad at all. Less favored. Excited to try it chilled. Yeah, for sure. To me, like that's in a weird way, like out of context, I probably would have personally liked that wine more. But then when I have it again, it's kind of bookended by two wines that are pretty extremely different from it. It's tough, you know. Like it's when I do these with like 8 wines, we really go deep, you know. Tissot has been officially dubbed the Kool-Aid one. Yeah, wow, surprising me. Like my bottle of this too is like it's kind of. I'm still really in the funk, in the funky place with it. It's kind of an overused word, but Gamay wines to me always are really like transparent. It's you see you it's very obvious like the fruit flavors that are there. If there's anything herbaceous, it's usually pretty upfront, and the acid is to me usually refreshing. Like I said, bad ones can be bitter, and we taste a lot of wine here, and we try to stay away from those. So yeah, it is the Tissot is tough next to the Clos de Roilette. Clos de Roilette is like they don't make bad wine. I mean, this is like year in and year out. This stuff is just unbelievable. Yeah. I'll go back to that initial. What are we doing, man? I'll do my initial thing and then show everybody Beaujolais once again. You see that the best areas of Beaujolais are really kind of stationed in the northern part, and they're all. Clos de Roilette's interesting because it's one of the few places that doesn't have the granite soil. But really, like most of like the nouveau that you're getting is all this bottom southern part that isn't quite as hilly. It's a flatter, in a lot of ways, flatter region. Beaujolais is almost all hand harvested too, which is crazy to think about. For this is a relatively large wine region, and man, it's an undertaking to harvest this stuff all in a couple weeks. Yeah. The Tissot smells like tequila to one of us here. Dude, that's a really good call. Like it's like earthy in like a in like a kind of dried out dirt way. Like that I sometimes get if that's what you mean with tequila, and like kind of like a stony, like dried out dirt way that you kind of get out of tequila. That's an interesting call. Yeah. A lot of that is the dude probably uses native yeast too. I think that I'm sure the Tissot and the Clos de la Roilette are all just native yeast, the yeast that are in their cellar and from the vineyards too, which kind of adds to unique characteristics coming up in both wines from a flavor standpoint. Well, guys, I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna turn this off. Thanks everybody for streaming, for buying the wines and checking this out. Like next week we're gonna do the sparkling. If you dug this, feel free to share this with everybody. Always, I love the questions. This was super. This was super active. Appreciate it a ton. Like enjoy the wines, even if you're tomorrow with pizza. Even take care. Be safe. Stop streaming. Bye.